Have you ever seen a happier face? Minion, when are you going to make your Corsair video? Minion, when are you going to make your Corsair video? And I'm going to be honest with you. The reason why it took so long to make this Corsair video is because I've been flying the Corsair. I've been enjoying the Corsair. And it has given me some interesting insights into my own emotional state with Star Citizen. I don't know. I mean, I still refer to them as emotion things. I mean, that kind of shows my level of development in that area. But yeah, that has been like really what has kind of held me up is I've been actually flying the ship and enjoying it. And even looking at this footage now, I'm not really looking at it and saying, oh, you know what, I want to go to Microtech and I want to get a shot of like shooting up through the clouds too, or you know, I want to get that perfect angle where you see the city lit up on one side of ArcCorp, but on the other side the sun is already, you know, up, so you kind of get this kind of cool duality effect. Yeah, I'm not thinking of it in those terms. I'm thinking about, oh, I actually, you know what, I want to try an all fixed ballistic cannon setup. I want to get that big 10,000 DPS, one hit alpha strike in there. I want to start messing around with that. And oh, you know what, yeah, I should do the shields. And as I was playing with the ship, all those things started to come back. Engagement with the game beyond just getting the pretty shots, and engagement with playing the game. And it has been like a really difficult year, and I'm sure a lot of people know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I mean, the roadmap stuff and this last Citizen Con and just like everything just delayed, and we know why. Right? And we don't need like members of our community, prominent or otherwise, trying to like gaslight us into believing that any and all expectations of this game's development are unrealistic and unfair upon CIG. You know, anytime somebody complains, there are always 5 or 6 people in chat who immediately jump in and doing their best impersonation of Greta Thunberg, like, how dare you? How dare you have expectations? It's a pre-alpha. And it's just like, okay, it's been a decade of pre-alpha, my friend. It's been a really tough year, but this was honestly, flying around in this ship, it kind of gave me a few insights, because I started to realize that the relationship that this ship had with its old placeholder, the loaner that we had for the ship, the Constellation Aquila, the relationship between these two ships is, I would say, very analogous to the relationship between a Super Hornet and a Gladius, And I've often, kind of looked at these ships as these are the next step up from the fighters. And this was obviously an area that had been so severely underdeveloped in Star Citizen's development. And probably because it's easier to just, put out a new starter ship or slap together a new fighter. It's going to be a lot quicker to do that than it is going to be to make a ship that's actually, not just dressing, but meat and potatoes, you know what I mean? And these are the ships that we really need more of in Star Citizen, and not the, I have to admit, I can't even remember the name of the new Drake starter ship. It just immediately became the Drake LTI token in my mind, and I categorized it there, and I don't even need to know your name. We know what you are. Stop it. Oh no, read the Q&A. It's actually got some interesting. Stop it. You don't need a Q&A for an LTI token. So we asked the developers, what do you think about this stuff? What do you think the usage of the ship is going to be? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here and going into a rant about that Q&A. I love how it's just like we've gone to internal questions only about these Q&As because, the citizens were asking too many pertinent and real questions that we didn't have answers to, or didn't have good answers to. But to get back on track, all of that stuff, all of that anger, all that frustration, all of that angst was pushed aside when I was just kind of tooling around and working my way up through the hierarchy of bounty missions. I actually found myself having fun. I enjoyed the range of the ship, and it was more than the ship just reinforcing like the ideas and the theories that I already had about where this game is going and how things are moving in terms of gameplay. I mean, it very much is the embodiment of exactly what I thought it would be and exactly what I said it would be. It is what I thought it would be, and I knew it was going to be good, and it is exactly that. But beyond just, being able to look at the simple stats and say, oh, that'll be good, and looking at the physical layout of the ship and saying, oh, that'll be good, it was good in a way that allowed me to kind of push a lot of that kind of negativity and a lot of that kind of disenchantment with CIG and certain members of the community aside, and just engage with the game and enjoy the game again. It was fun to watch all these ships just explode all over the place. There was even an incident where I was just trying to make a quick escape out of Grim Hex, and I just was not prepared for it at all, and I was just sitting there shoveling food into my mouth while I was trying to fly the ship at the same time, and I got shot down by another player, or actually I think it was two players. And I just kind of was looking at the situation. I wasn't being mad about it or anything like that. I started thinking analytically. I was like, man, if I'd been smart enough to fully crew this, or if I just put in a little extra effort to get a few people on this ship to mend those turrets, this wouldn't have been an issue at all, even, trying to eat and fly at the same time. It just would have gone fairly swimmingly. And so I feel that it's kind of redundant to say that this is a really good ship for the price point and for what it is compared to the other ships. If we're using Star Citizen as a scale, the prices of Star Citizen ships, I think, is a completely separate debate, but compared to the other ones, this is excellent value for your money. And I mean, some people will prefer the Constellation, and that is totally a legit pick as well. And if there's anything that I've really taken away from this experience of flying the ship and enjoying the ship as much as I have, it's that really we have some really good ships in this game. We have some really great ships in this game. The problem is that we just don't have the game to support them. The problem isn't the ships, it's the systems. Really, Star Citizen's biggest problem right now is itself, And that was, after hours of flying around in this game and just playing with the ship and being re-engaged by the game and wanting to constantly just log back in and play some more. And it's just like within an hour I had enough footage to make this video, but the footage that you're looking at is built up across multiple days of playing the game in a row. Like in a row, multiple days of playing Star Citizen, which previously was, for me, unheard of. I always had other things to do, other games to play, and it would just became like logging into Star Citizen was like, okay, I'm going to log in. I want to get this footage for this video because this is what I'm going to be talking about. This is okay. Got it. Oh, good. This thing happened. Even better. Very fortuitous. And log out, and we'll come back in a week. And now is just like, oh no, I'm into this. I'm playing this. I'm going after it. Now I'm starting to think about my ship setup, and I'm kind of going like, oh yeah, you know what? I do remember that keybind always used to bug me. I got to work on that. And oh, you know what? I got to make a dedicated keybind to unfold the wings on this ship. Alt K, by the way, so you don't have to ask in local anymore. But yeah, it is the ship that it was supposed to be. It's such a good ship. The only real deficiency, I mean, like, we can go into the nitpicks. Oh yeah, I mean, does it really make sense to make an elevator that goes all the way to the roof when really all you need to do is EVA out in space and then just do whatever you have to do on the roof of the ship there? Does it make sense? Well, I mean, there might be some narrow case issues where you'd be like, well, 1 in 100 chance that you might have to do it on the surface of a planet, but realistically, probably not. There are a lot of little nitpicky things that you can kind of say about, this ship, but the truth of it is that the ship really is fantastic. Do I feel that I got my money's worth? Yeah. Have I enjoyed playing it? Yeah. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I've had a lot more fun than I think would be normally expected playing Star Citizen. Realistically, this only reinforces the idea that we're starting to see. In the beginning, we had a lot of really bad ships in Star Citizen, and we still have a lot of those bad ships in the game. Ships that were just horribly designed, and that were basically just things that people thought were just going to pose on a desk or be a 3D model or something for a JPEG on a website, and they weren't thinking about, well, what are the gameplay implications of its space, of how it's built, of how things are spaced, of how you navigate the interior spaces. None of that was really taken into account with those early ships. And now we are starting to see these ships coming into the game where I think possibly even uncomfortably for CIG, we're starting to ask the question, not is this a good ship, is this a bad ship, but we're starting to ask the question, are we playing a game that's really worthy of the ships that they are putting into the game? Now that's a question. What I mean by that is that when you make great ships, when you make amazing ships like this, certainly I think to go beyond just this and the Constellation, but to highlight something like, let's say, the Ares Ion, which was very obvious from the early stages, or the Scorpius, certainly, as a heavy fighter, which has its definite strengths, some drawbacks, but definite strengths. The more you make these really good ships in the game, the more you create these reasons to play Star Citizen, the more you also inadvertently highlight all the neglect in Star Citizen's development. And I do use that word I choose that word very carefully because it's obvious. And everyone knows that all these resources are just moved to Squadron 42 to get Squadron 42 out the door. But at the same time, the more people that you draw into the game to play the game, the more hours that they spend there, the more they interact with a hilariously out-of-date UI, the more they look and they notice, oh, all these other systems are missing. Because they see the potential of the ship and they say, oh, what if we had this? What if we had that? And honestly, in some cases, we know why we don't have NPCs manning turrets when you can generate that in the game, and NPC ships do it all the time. We just don't have the UI for it. Well, why not make it? As well, we'd have to get the guy over here and to do the thing and to make the stuff, and then we have to make it systemic, and it has to be all the buzzwords, and we don't, we just can't do that overnight. It takes us 3 years to do these things. And it highlights the dysfunctional nature of the game's development, and that is, I think, in a weird way, it is very much like, the Ares Ion comes out and we say, oh, we gotta nerf that, that's too powerful. But then we bring out the Scorpius and we bring out the Corsair, right? So we're trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Is that the move? And that's very much kind of what's going on. And I mean, without just fully just getting right into the whole thing of, well, maybe it's time that we just refocus resources into Star Citizen and just say Squadron 42 side project. I mean, I think that barring a miracle in Squadron 42's development, at some point, someone obviously not out here in the backer sphere, but within, the CIG environment, at some point, unless there's some miracle in Squadron 42's development, or, it's just so far along that any day now, it's just going to be this big content drop, and I'm going to be like, oh man, it's, open beta next week or whatever. Unless we're on the cusp of something like that, someone's got to be brave enough to stick their neck out and just say, look, we gotta, this is the goose that laid the golden egg. Maybe we should stop starving it to death. And the more that we bring out fantastic ships like this, the more it kind of becomes obvious that the rest of the game, it really doesn't support them.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.